Good evening, Zimbabweans and others listening or watching to this video. Today, I will talk about two political issues. One, I'll be looking at the Bond Notes, which are upcoming, starting from November, which is next week. And also, I'll be looking at the implications of the Norton results to opposition. Now, firstly, let me reflect on the definition of bond notes. Now, the bond notes is an instrument of indebtedness or a debt instrument. What that means is that if you buy the bond, you become the creditor and the government becomes the debtor to you. Now, the reason why I had to define what bonds are, is that people understand where we are coming from, and then we can relate that to the Zimbabwe situation. Now, in the case of Zimbabwe, this is not the way the bonds are being used. If you reflect on the Western world or other developed countries, the bonds are usually widely as a monetary control mechanism. If the government decides to limit the flow of liquidity within an economy, they sell the bonds, and then they'll be able to reduce the circulation of cash within an economy. And when the levels of cash within an economy goes down, in a case, for example, like Zimbabwe, the government then will buy back the bonds from the public. So in that way, there is a balance between the cash circulating within a country and the bonds. In this case, I'm talking about the bond certificate. Now, given the scenario that bonds are widely used all over the world, why is it that there is a fuss within the Zimbabwean economy or resistance by Zimbabweans of bonds? Now, the reason why is that the use of the bonds in the economic sense, as it's known globally, is not the approach that the governor and the government of Zimbabwe is implementing. Now, to understand the deviation from the use of the bonds as instruments of indebtedness, let me maybe review on the reason why the governor said he's introducing the bonds. Now, the governor was saying the government is introducing the bonds to support export incentive because the products produced in Zimbabwe under the US dollar have become uncompetitive within the region. In this case, we are talking about the SADC region, and also we're talking about Africa. Again, Zimbabwe is the only country using US dollar in Africa, and understandable so, the products would be very expensive because the labor cost is in US dollars. And all the costs, including the wages, and thereby increasing in terms of the cost of products and becoming, yes, as the governor said, the products produced in Zimbabwe today under US dollar will be highly uncompetitive against, say, products produced in South Africa under the rand because of the exchange rates, the differences. But however, the governor is failing to understand that the governor and the government of Robert Mugabe has always impressed that the bond notes will have a 1-to-1 exchange rate with the US dollar. Mind you, these are not my words. These have been the words from the governor and the ZANU-PF government. Now, assuming that they are right, that the bond will be 1-to-1 with the US dollar, it therefore means that the cost of production will still remain the same, because the bond will be equal to the US dollar. So I don't see how the production using the bond can lower the cost of production to such in a way that the products produced in Zimbabwe under the bond becomes competitive against the rand, for example, if the bond is equivalent to the US dollar, unless the government of Zimbabwe have got other reasons which they are not open in terms of the reasons why they are introducing the bond. Again, I looked at other reasons why they are introducing the bond, and this is at the equivalent of 200 million US dollars. And again, the governor said they are going to stagger the 200 million. It is not going to be introduced in totality in November, but from November they will introduce about 65 million, and by 2017 they would have introduced the remaining 200 million in bond notes, and the denominators are the $2 and $5 to start with. Notice that the timing for the implementation is by end of 2017, which is at the eve of another election in 2018. And then the bigger question as well is to say, what is 200 million to the challenges, economic challenges that we have as Zimbabweans? That is a very small figure, considering that since 2013 elections, the expenditure within the government have always surpassed the revenue collection in every year. To such an extent, as we speak, we've got a deficit of over $1 billion US dollars. Now compare a deficit of $1 billion US dollars to an injection of 200 million. One would wonder, I think there's suspicion there on what exactly the government of Robert Mugabe is trying to achieve by using 200 million in bond notes. As I said, I think there's all necessary reason why Zimbabweans should be very suspicious of this whole project, given the historical perspective of Robert Mugabe's government in terms of managing economy. So yes, that's one aspect that we need to, I'm introducing a debate so that Zimbabweans out there, we can start then looking at if it is true that the reason for introducing the bond notes is to support export incentives, to drive the cost of production down. Why is it that the bond is equivalent to $1 US? And how long will be the bond equivalent to US dollars? And who has the right to peg the exchange rate of any currency? Not necessarily from a Zimbabwean perspective, if we are to look at all currencies globally. Again, that's again an issue that we can start discussing and see the sincerity of whether the government of Robert Mugabe or ZANU-PF is sincere in solving the cash crisis in the country. The next issue, as I've said, is I'm also going to review or analyze the impact of the Norton election results. Firstly, I would like to start by congratulating Pfebve Muliswa, who won convincingly against the ZANU-PF candidate. But it is worth mentioning that there's much into the winning of Pfebve Muliswa than it is to the impact of opposition politics in Zimbabwe. One, it has highlighted the need for opposition parties to unite against the giant Goliath of all evils, ZANU-PF. We saw during the Norton elections, MDC coming out open to support Themba Mliswa. Again, if you look at it, yes, it was a departure from MDC as a party, always impressing on reforms before going to elections, understandably so. But also, it highlighted how politically organized and how politically relevant is MDC as we speak. Would it been possible for Themba Mliswa to win without the support of MDC support base? Maybe not. But one thing is for certain, is that MDC has shown that it still have the command and the support base of the people, both in towns and the rural areas. And the results could have been different if MDC has not rallied behind the candidate. And I have also to take credit to Themba Mliswa in the sense that for him to choose strategically MDC as a partner in this election, it shows that he's a shrewd politician. And again, we must congratulate him for that. But one thing is for certain, there's also an element that we must accept, that as we move forward towards 2018 elections, opposition parties need to unite for a common cause. What actually divides us is less than what unites us, and that is to remove Robert Mugabe and ZANU-PF. And not on election results have shown that yes, it is possible if Zimbabweans are united, if political parties are united, if politicians are united purposefully, that we can remove ZANU-PF and Robert Mugabe. And this should be the message. Again, for today, I'll end here. Thank you very much. I can see quite a lot of people. Killian, for example, Simon, Manyara, and others. I'll be analyzing and talking to Zimbabweans on various issues on a weekly basis, especially picking on topical issues and try to analyze and evaluate and see how we Zimbabweans can come together, come up with strategies as we journey into 2018 elections to remove Robert Mugabe once and for all. It is possible, as Norton is shown, and again, this is against the backdrop of a ZANU-PF which is fragmented, which is fractured. Again, ZANU-PF led by a 1992-year-old president. Really, we Zimbabweans, we are a young generation. We are, for example, over 55% of the population of Zimbabwe is under 25 years. But we are still being led by a 92-year-old president. We are, again, let me remind all viewers that Zimbabwe is the most literate country in Africa, and our literacy does not equate to our poverty bestowed upon us by ZANU-PF. And it is upon us Zimbabweans to unite and to start seriously being part of the solution. You might not be part of the problem, but surely every Zimbabwean is part of the solution. I thank you all. Goodbye.